the pumpkin seeds into the mortar, and we pretty much are going to sit here and we're going to make sure that we break them all down. You got to keep in mind, in order to access that cucurbitacin, they must be crushed, right? As you're seeing here, in a matter of less than, I want to guess and say 20 seconds, you can see that the pumpkin seed is ready to go, and that's more than enough. Next step is we're going to go ahead and we're going to shred our carrot. All right, we want to make it bulk forming. Now, a lot of you are probably going to hit me up and say, but you just said last week on your anti-yeast video to not feed a dog carrot, and that is correct. This is for a natural dewormer. If your dog has a yeast infection, I'll be showing you other natural dewormers that we can use that do not necessarily raise the blood sugar and do not necessarily contribute to the yeast, okay? But right now, this first recipe is pretty much done. This is the bulk forming carrot, right? Once it gets into the gut, it's going to be bulk forming. And the cucurbitacin inside of the pumpkin seed, what it does is it paralyzes the parasite. So that's going to paralyze the parasite. This is going to push it out when your dog has a bowel movement. We're going to go ahead and put on the screen frequency, how often. I could tell you guys with these dewormers, you could actually feed them all daily if you needed to. Also, you can mix and match them, meaning you can mix this recipe with another recipe, or you could even mix all the recipes together. And that's because each recipe has a different mechanism of function. So for now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and throw our carrots in there. By the way, you can add this to either kibble or kibble, meaning dry food, dry dog food, or raw dog food, or even cooked, doesn't matter, right? You just don't wanna cook this. You wanna give this raw the same way we're preparing it now, all right? That's essentially what you would add to it and what your dog would eat. All right, this next one is probably the easiest and one of the oldest that's been used throughout mankind. And what we're going to be using is going to be papaya seeds. Now, papayas have an enzyme, a proteolytic enzyme that will actually break down proteins or even the outer layer of parasites called papain, right? Papain is an enzyme that helps the breakdown of proteins, of fats, of carbohydrates. Basically, there's really not much to it except going ahead and cutting open your papaya, okay? These seeds right here, as you can see there, they contain trace amounts of cyanide. We're going to be putting on the screens what amounts you should be given and how often. But this is the mechanism of action that actually gets rid of the parasite. Keep in mind, papain is also found in the fruit, but mostly by where the skin is. We found that a lot of Latin American farmers not only use the seeds, but they also use the skin. One other thing I want to say about this by itself is a powerful dewormer. What makes it even more powerful is if you go ahead and combine it with the previous shredded carrots we had shredded before. You put those two things together and it becomes that much more powerful. And of course, if you were to just add it to the pumpkin seeds, which we already put in there and we put through the mortar, okay? Based on the amounts that you need to use, it becomes that much more powerful, okay? And you can definitely squish them seeds as well, because now you're hitting them with a trace amount of cyanide along with the cucurbitacin or cucurbitacin right inside of the pumpkin seed. And of course, the shredded carrots are working as a mechanical push out, if you will. So that makes that much more powerful. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to combine it. You can combine all of them together if you wanted to. But you're going to notice as you combine these, what you're giving your dog becomes more and more powerful of a dewormer. So this next one is probably the most controversial of all because of the use of garlic. I get written to all the time and told that Google says that garlic is toxic for dogs. The truth of the matter is anything in too high of amounts can become toxic for dogs. Same holds true for garlic. Same holds true for any medication they give you at the vet. If you notice, they usually weigh your dog and then they dose the dog accordingly so that the dose of the medication they give you does not become toxic. The same could be true with garlic. We give 1 garlic clove per 100 pounds of dog. 1 garlic clove per 100 pounds of dog. If you have a 50-pound dog, it would be half of a garlic clove. If you had a 25-pound dog, it would be a quarter of a garlic clove. Now, the thing about garlic is you do have to do a little bit of preparation. You could either slice it into tiny pieces, or you can crush it like so, or you can do both, okay? And the reason you want to do this is because garlic contains sulfur compounds, and it also contains something called alum, which isn't good for dogs. And what we want to do is let this sit here for 15 minutes, let it react with air, and it's going to go from alum and it's going to become allicin, which is actually very beneficial for dogs. In fact, because of the sulfur compounds, it changes the microbiome in the gut. It'll disrupt parasites from reproducing, from living. It'll shorten the lifespan. So this is also a powerful dewormer, but you must know the dosage and the amounts that you're going to be feeding. I also get asked a lot, do you feed this daily? My answer is yes, we do, daily. The other part of this recipe is very simple. You get a teaspoon, which is 1/3 of a tablespoon, and that's going to be mixed with whatever amount of garlic you need. So right now, 15 minutes have passed. Because I'm going to be feeding this to a 100-pound dog, we're going to go ahead and put all of the garlic in there. And we're actually going to throw it in here. Now, I do want you guys to understand, this last one I just showed you, if you have a dog that has an active yeast infection or has active skin conditions, you want to do the garlic and the coconut oil one. The other ones, you can give the papaya seeds by itself, but you don't want to give the fruit, and you don't want to give the shredded carrots because that's going to attribute as well to the yeast, ongoing yeast or skin condition that you may be having. We're going to do like all the other times. We're going to mix this and we're going to mortar it together one more time. We're hitting this from many different directions. As you can see, everything we just did, not only is completely natural, but it's very, very inexpensive. I would dare to say that this deworming that we're setting up here, which is actually 2 50-pound dogs, right? So it's 100 pounds worth of dog. I would say this comes out to possibly less than, and I'm guessing here, less than what? 15, 20 cents to make everything you just seen here. Now, if your dog has an out-of-hand ongoing infection before you see this video, I don't suggest you start giving this now, okay? It might be too late. You might have crossed the threshold. Is there anything I could do to make this more powerful? The answer is yes, absolutely. First 3 recipes were chemical reactions based. This last one is purely mechanical and none other than Diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth, make sure it's food chemical codex grade. In other words, food grade, okay? This you could actually feed not just to dogs, but goats, rabbits, chickens. It's completely safe. The amounts that you feed, we're going to show you on the screen. For small dogs is usually half of a teaspoon. For medium-sized dogs, it's usually a full teaspoon. And for a larger dog, it's usually a teaspoon and a half. But either way, we're going to go ahead and mix it all together. The mechanism of action of diatomaceous earth. This is nothing more than algae that's been fossilized, and then it gets crushed. Once you put it under a microscope and you check it out, you're going to see nothing but little shards, pieces of glass, if you will. What this does naturally is it'll stab the parasites, slice them. They dehydrate and they die, and they get pushed out with everything else that we're giving them. So now you have different mechanisms working at the same time. You got papain from your papaya. You have cucurbitacin from your pumpkin seeds. You definitely have the garlic. You have coconut oil, lauric acid. We have the carrots working mechanically, but we also have the diatomaceous earth cutting up the parasites inside of the gut, and it's completely safe for the dogs. Now, time to feed our dogs. All right, so we're giving the 1/2 over here. All right. There we go. Everything is set. Dogs are ready to eat. There you have it, guys. Huh? Yeah, she's loving it. If you're wondering what we're feeding, nothing more than meat and broccoli with turmeric. And so we're adding this as well. For those of you that don't know, turmeric is an antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. All right. See our girl's coat. I know my girl over here is eating, but I'll show you her entire coat here in a minute. As well as my girl Sunshine. Coat is spotless. All right. That has a lot to do with what we're feeding. And also, no parasites, obviously. You see the coats that I have mentioned to you before? I mean, it's just doesn't get any better than that, guys. It really doesn't. It's my big boy Congo next to Sunshine, next to Girl. And there comes the old man of the show. That's my boy Fireball in the back, right over here. He's about to turn 9 years old, April 30th. One of the things we spoke about was skin infection and yeast infection in your dogs. If you want to know more how to feed your dogs to get rid of it or what may be causing it, make sure to click on this next video. It's been Raul from the Q. Be catching you right here.